Good morning, everybody. I would like to call to order the 74th Annual Convention of the National Federation of the Blind of Kentucky. It's kind of odd to do this with no cheering or anything like that. Woo! So make my own. I want to start out with a quote by Maya Angelou, that says, I can be changed by what happens to me, but I refuse to be reduced by it. This year, we are talking all about resiliency. As you guys know, in the past year, we have learned more about that than I think we expected to. And bringing that into our convention just seems appropriate at this time. In saying that, I want to say to everybody, this morning, you're going to be able to practice your resiliency. Some of our speakers have changed. Things come up in life. So we have a little flip-flopping around. Most of the content should be the same. However, some of that will have changed. And also right now, I'm about to flip-flop something on you. I have housekeeping listed later, but some of it's going to happen right now because I changed my mind. Anyway, if you are connecting via Zoom, and you're connecting via the telephone, just so you know, the commands are *6 to mute and or unmute, and *9 to raise your hand. If you click **, you can also get a list of the keyboard commands. If you are connecting and you are deafblind, we do have the captioning turned on. I believe the first time that you click on live captioning, it will give you a permissions thing and Phil will click you in, but next time you shouldn't have to do that. I believe it's only on. Also noted, if you are a host, if you are a presenter, you have been listed as a host, which means you are responsible for muting and unmuting yourself. So please check your settings and make sure that you are muted when you are not talking. All right. If you have any technical issues, last year you texted me, don't text me. This year you're going to text one of our tech guys, Ben Henderson, at 606-571-8447. If I got that wrong, Ben, you can just jump in because you can fix that. And actually, guys, if you wouldn't mind, just drop that number in the chat as well. And I will do the rest of the housekeeping things here in a little bit, but that I thought needed to be said right now. Anyhow, opening this morning in prayer will be our Paula Caldwell, who is one of the members of our at-large chapter, and we really appreciate this, Paula.
Oh, Lord, I just want to come to you with a peaceful heart, and I just want to pray blessings over the National Federation of the Blind. I want to pray for the presenters and the people putting this together and everybody that has been involved in the planning. I pray for everyone that is coming in, that they will, that this convention will increase membership. This is a specific thing that is close to my heart, that I want to pray about, that every person, new person that goes to this convention, that they will become members immediately and will feel accepted. And I just want to pray this for the leaders, the new leaders that'll be coming in, and I just want to pray all of these things, that everything will come together as it should on this Zoom platform. And I want to pray for any technical problems to be resolved immediately. So I just want to pray blessing after blessing after blessing over the representative and the president that is going to be speaking at this convention. And I want to pray for anybody that is physically having problems with throat issues, that the speakers will be able to speak loudly and clearly, and overcome any physical issues that they may have. So I just want to pray all of these things in the name of Jesus. And I pray blessings as we continue to build the Federation of Kentucky. Amen.
Thank you so much, Paula. I can't help but feel much more peaceful after you have said all that, and we very much appreciate it. This morning, our Pledge of Allegiance is going to be brought to us by McKenna Herod. McKenna was our very first Bell friend, and she's been with our Bell program ever since, I think 7 years or something like that. I suspect that next year she'll be taking on a new role and hopefully helping out at our Bell program once we go back to in person. So McKenna, thank you so much. Do we need to switch? Sorry, we're having technical issues. There we go. All right. Well, we appear to have some technical issues, so you let me know when you guys get that resolved, and I will move on to some more housekeeping issues. So other housekeeping issues that I planned to address at the end of our intro. If you are part of the neurodivergent community and are bothered by sensory things, I just wanted to let you know that we are not having intro music. So you do not need to turn down your Zoom. I know some people do that just to keep themselves comfortable. So I wanted to let you know that ahead of time. If after a presentation, you would like to ask a question, we would ask that you either use the raise hand feature, but preferably if you are able to write the questions in the chat, and Ben is going to be our chat moderator, and he is going to read those out for us. Just do note that if you have a question and we do not get to your question, if you leave me a message later or leave it in the Zoom and say get the chat in the Zoom and ask us to get back to you, we will do that at a later time. And also, I will take this moment to thank the behind the scenes folks who are over there on the phone right now talking to each other to figure out why the screen has frozen. Phil Seif and Ben Henderson have been running our Zoom for the past several years. And Riley Seif has been doing a lot of the editing work, both before and during. So I would like to thank all of them. There is actually a full convention committee. I'm not going to name all of you. Most of you are on the board and or listed in another capacity in this. Phil, are you all still working on that? He can't hear me. He has earbuds in. Okay. Since I have not heard back from the technical team, I'm assuming that we are still waiting on that. And I'm going to ask, and sorry, I'm putting you on the spot, Carla. Carla McQuillan is the president of the Oregon affiliate, and she is also our national representative who comes to us as a member of the board. And I just wondered if you would like to introduce yourself while these guys are figuring out our tech issues.
Sure. Hey, good morning, everybody. So it's just after 6 a.m. my time, so I am not on screen, but I will be later. It is really great to be here as your national representative, and I look forward to spending more time with you guys. I was at the resolutions committee meeting and the social before the movie last night, and got a chance to hear from some of you, and I hope to get to know some of you even better. Thanks, Jane.
Thank you very much for waking up so early. When you were assigned as our national rep, I was like, now I just feel bad for her. So I appreciate your resiliency and being able to do that.
I used to be in the office at 6:30 in the morning, and with all the parents coming and going, I run Montessori schools. I got more done in the first hour and a half than I got the rest of the day, right? So I'm used to early.
I think the first time I met you was at a Bell training, and I was like, oh, preschool teacher. Okay, we have to talk. And I think I didn't know anybody, and I did definitely talk to Carla because we both do the same thing. Well, she does more executive work than I do now, but we have the same background since we are both preschool teachers. I think that you find other places that you go. All right. Thank you very much. I'm hoping that the tech guys will tell me. All right, they're ready to go. Woohoo! I will point out that the tech guys, one of which is my husband, so he just walked to the door of the room that I'm in to tell me that they're ready. See, we're very old school and techie at the same time. Awesome. So here we go, McKenna, for the Pledge of Allegiance. Okay, they lied to me. So there we go.
Go.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Awesome. Thank you, McKenna. All right. Well, as I said before, she is definitely our longest standing Bell student, and that was beautiful. I'm glad we talked you into it. I don't know if they're ready for this, so I'm hoping that they are. Our national anthem is being presented by Sandra Williams. Sandra Williams is a longtime member of the National Federation of the Blind of Kentucky. She is a member of the board and a member in various capacities. You're going to hear her name several times today as far as committees and divisions. So Sandra, thank you so much.
Oh, say, can you see by the dawn's early light what so proudly we hailed at the twilight's last gleaming whose broad stripes and bright stars through the perilous fight for the ramparts we watched were so gallantly streaming, and the rocket's red glare, the bombs bursting in air, came through the night, but our flag was still there. Oh, say does that star-spangled banner yet wave for the land of the free and the home of the brave?
All right. Another note to the tech guys, I believe my hand is raised. That is not on purpose. I think my keyboard might be trying to do things in here, just so you know. Just so you know. All right. Thank you, Sandra. And for those of you who don't know, Sandra is quite under the weather, and I am vastly impressed that you were able to pull that off, given the cold that you have and having talked to you on the phone. That is impressive. It really is. So this year for our NFB pledge, we are welcoming Jacob Hack. Jacob Hack was one of our scholarship winners, and he had not been to anything in the NFB before he was one of our scholarship winners several years back now. And he has stuck around and been part of some student groups and is actually now a part of the membership committee. So it's awesome to see our young people stepping up and becoming a part of our community in a big way. So Jacob, thank you so much for the NFB pledge.
I pledge to participate actively in the effort of the National Federation of the Blind to achieve equality, opportunity, and security for the blind, to support the policies and programs of the Federation, and to abide by its Constitution.
Thank you very much. And I should have pointed this out before that is in your agenda, should you need to follow along. I did not, but you can memorize it later. That's my challenge. You might have to have a contest. Anyways, so typically at this point, we would have one of us stand up there and we would welcome you to Louisville, except we're all over the place. And so I kind of wanted to try to do something a little bit different. This little guy who is going to be reading a Braille welcome to our convention has been a Bell student of ours since I think the past 6 years, something like that. And when he came to Bell the first time, he did not know how to read Braille. And honestly, he was not super pumped about Braille one way or the other. And now he is actually going to be reading, for those of you who cannot see the screen, he is actually going to be reading the welcome in Braille himself. So Anthony, we're so proud of you. Here we go.
Welcome to Block 74, National Federation of the Blind Kentucky Convention.
Yay! I think that deserves a big clap. We're so proud of you, and thank you for welcoming us all to the convention. We are going to move on to our regular program, and hopefully we have our tech issues under control for right now. Jada DeWalt once said, when we learn how to become resilient, we learn how to embrace the beautiful, broad spectrum of the human experience. And I think this definitely fits our next two presenters. Reese O'Brien has been a longtime member of the National Federation of the Blind of Kentucky. And when I first met Reese, his mother had seen me speak earlier in the convention, and she told him that I would probably go skydiving with him. I will not go skydiving with you, but Reese, after becoming blind in his late teens, actually has regularly skydived. I don't think it's extraordinary because you're blind. I think it's crazy, but I appreciate that you do it. We're also going to be talking to Joe Burkett. Joe Burkett also became blind as an adult, and took his athletics that he had already done prior to becoming blind, and just most recently ran the Boston Marathon. So good morning, guys.
Good morning. This is Joe. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Great.
Reese is on.
Do we have Reese?
So he's on here. There he is. Is that your giggle? No. Reese is not unmuted. You can unmute yourself because you're listed as a host, just so you know.
Yes.
All
no,
right.
Can you hear me?
Oh, there you are. Now
there we go.
Can hear you. Awesome. All right. Well, these two gentlemen actually presented for a Greater Louisville chapter presentation, which was so popular that people actually wanted to hear you guys again, and not everybody was there, so they were a little jealous. All right. So we're going to kind of do this moderator style. These guys have great stories. So if you guys think of things that I'm not asking you, just jump in and share that. First, I would really like to know if you guys would talk about becoming blind and how you decided that this was not going to be a defining characteristic that was going to change your life, but that you were going to continue to do things and that you were already interested in, etc. So let's start with Joe.
All right. So just a little introduction about myself. I'm from Louisville, still in Louisville. And I went blind at the age of 30 from Leber's hereditary optic neuropathy, LHON for short. And I'm 39 now. So I've been it's almost 9 years to the day that I started noticing eye problems. And with LHON, it starts in one eye, and it's a very rare eye condition, and it travels to the other eye over time. And they can't tell you when or what, but it takes a long time to usually get diagnosed. And when they diagnose it, they tell you, oh, by the way, yeah, you can't see out of one eye, it's going to be two, and we can't tell you when. And so I was 30, gainfully employed, and my whole thing was kind of just like, I had a boss at work say, what do you need? And it's one of those, well, like, I'm not even blind yet, but I know I'm going to be. I wish I could tell you. And it was kind of trying to bridge the gap of figuring out what I will need without knowing. Like the helplessness of not knowing made me really be like, well, I'm going to just go ahead and dive into this and try to figure out how to get ahead of it. And that was just kind of one of those things. It's hard, very hard to do. I learned to predict how to live life visually impaired, but it was just kind of one of those. I had end up being, started in November, and by April of 2013, I was legally blind. And so it was kind of a 4 to 5 month process of just being like, yeah, trying to figure out how to handle it. And that's kind of why I knew it was happening. So I just kind of dove in head first and said, let's go.
Awesome. And I know that before you became blind, you were also an athlete, correct? You did, because you and I were talking about the mountain biking and stuff like that, which I think was helpful.
Yeah. So before I played in high school, I was a cross country runner and baseball player, and I signed a scholarship to play college baseball at Bellarmine University here in Louisville. Played 4 years of college baseball as a pitcher, and then just that competitive drive of playing college sports led me to continue trying to stay fit and competitive. And so from out of college until I start losing my vision, I was a rec league softball player, did a little bit of running just to stay in shape, did some mountain biking. I was a very active person before losing my vision. Once I started noticing the vision loss, then it was tried mountain biking with my brother a couple times and decided maybe this isn't the safest thing for me anymore. Then tried something else, and I've really found I've messed around with goal ball, messed around with beat ball, and running's been the one thing that I've really found has been the best thing that fits me and that I've really taken a passion to since becoming visually impaired.
That's awesome. Reese, you're still on here, right? Yeah. Okay. Because I got that text, but I think that was from before. So could you talk about, the same thing, kind of give people an overview of your story and what made you decide to define your story by skydiving after you became blind, which is extraordinary.
Yeah. So I had a really similar experience, I think, with having the transition or adjustment to going blind. And I think it's generally can be kind of difficult to go from being really, really active like that to, when you can't see, where you might think that you can't still be active, but you actually can. And so I lost my vision when I was 18. It was Halloween. So actually the anniversary of mine was, just like last week or so. And I was in a car wreck and completely lost all of my vision. So no light perception. And that was almost a decade ago now. So there was a period after my accident, so from around 18, 19, 20, where, I was still adjusting, but I wasn't really sure what I was still capable of, I guess. So I think that going skydiving was a way to prove to myself, you can still do all of these things that you wanted to do before, because skydiving was something I had always wanted to do before going blind. And, afterwards, that was a really good goal for me to, it showed me that I still am able to do all of the things that I wanted to do before. So anyone that is listening to this, if you had something similar like that, if you're thinking, I don't know if I could do that, whether it's skydiving or, running a marathon, whatever it is, I mean, you definitely still can do it. You just have to do things a little bit differently, but you literally can still do anything that you wanted to do before.
Awesome. I appreciate that. Especially, I think it's great to hear stories of people who did not grow up blind, like myself, because even though I've lost a significant amount of vision, I already was in that world. So to hear from folks that were not and have embraced it and moved on is always, positive, especially in the community where we're trying to reach people who have become blind. So can you guys talk about some of the obstacles that there were to you either becoming an athlete or wanting to do adventures like skydiving, and give us some specifics on strategies that you actually use as a blind runner or a blind skydiver to make that adaptable for yourself? And I know that that's going to be different for different people, but at least it gives people a stepping off point, as it were. So we'll just continue to start with Joe and then Reese, just because the going back and forth can get confusing. I appreciate it.
All right. So with me, I'm mostly just going to stick with talk about running marathons. And kind of my adjustment with running. I was always a runner, and it was just kind of figuring out how to turn it into something I can do regularly. And at first it was just, I wanted to run a half marathon. And that was kind of one of those things of, I've lived in the same house for the past 20 years in St. Matthews. And I kind of just was adjusting to, I was running by myself a lot. And the trick with that was, okay, I'd run to the end of the street, and then it'd be like, okay, now what? Then I kind of just kept adding on with I have peripheral vision left. I don't have central. So I was just finding places where I can be safely navigate on my own. And that kind of gets tricky with the streets aren't the same every day. Like, I figured out which day garbage day was in certain neighborhoods. I avoided those streets on garbage day. Figure out where construction is and say, okay, well, I don't know how long that construction is going to last. I'll have to go run over this way. And I'm a half a mile away from Wagner High School's track, and they recently put in a brand new rubberized track. And I was like, okay, I can safely get a half a mile to that track, and I can run all day on that track. Well, I learned to have to do a slow lap around the track to make sure they don't have random things out on the track. And so it's kind of just that was how I kind of got into it. And then I found a group of guys that I regularly run with on Tuesdays, Thursdays, and Saturdays. And I don't tether when I run, but I like to stay just off of someone's shoulder and just kind of in a pack. I can manage staying in a pack, but the problem with that is trying to find people that are the same speed as you, same pace as you, and same distance. And so I spent quite a bit of time just chasing people that were faster than me, and then eventually got my conditioning to the point where I can run with them. And that's just the issues with just training and trying to get your miles in for training. But what I've come across lately, I've started doing more racing, and finding a guide for a race has been very difficult because like the Derby half marathon I did here last year, turns out everybody else was training for the same race and they're running their own race. I met Jane.
Well, stop being so fast.
I met Jane, and we run regularly in the same parks at the same time, and we didn't meet each other until we went to Sacramento. And we met in Sacramento at the California International Marathon, where they have the United States Association of Blind Athletes Marathon National Championships. And that's a good event to go to if you ever want to run. They offer like a relay division and a full marathon, and that's a good place to get a good start to racing, because Richard Hunter, the organizer of it, he will cater to your needs, help you find a guide. They do a lot of the organizational stuff for you. And so that's a good race to, if you ever want to get your feet wet, that's a good place to start, because they're like 75 to 100 blind athletes competing together. But the last race I did was the Boston Marathon back in October, and could not find any guides. Couldn't find anybody that was willing to travel to Boston and run with me. Are you
using United and Stride at all?
Yes, I did. Yeah, I went out on that. I found quite a few people in the Boston area that were either I don't live there anymore or no responses. But I actually kind of went through, I emailed Richard, who's out in California, who emailed somebody that's in Oregon, that emailed somebody that's in New York, and they found two brothers that were willing to do the Boston Marathon with me. So I went into the race only having emailed and one Zoom call with my two guide runners. And then on the plane to the race, one of them caught me before we were taking off and let me know he broke his toe. So we actually had to find another guide runner less than 24 hours before the race started. And yeah, it's just, it's hard to predict what's going to happen. Like if you're running your own race, you can just say, yeah, things happen. But with guide runners, I've heard plenty of stories where a guide's having a bad day and just says, I'm sorry, I can't do this anymore. What do you want to do? And you have to, in Boston, one guide runner, they split the race in half, and the halfway point, one of the guide runners just didn't even make it. And so this runner had to ask the guide, do you want to keep going? And they found another blind runner with a guide. I was like, hey, can you take this runner? And one guide for two runners. That was a story. That was an adventure.
That's impressive.
Yeah. And the guy that missed it, someone actually drove them up to mile 16, and they ran the Boston Marathon course backwards until they found their runner. So yeah,
wow.
yeah. So yeah, it's so it's just trying to find what's good for you and finding people that can. It's kind of one of the things I've been telling a lot of people lately. It's for finding people that make you better has kind of been my thing lately. It's like for running, for everything. I found a group of runners that are there that they make me a better person, running and socially and emotionally. And it's just been finding the right group of people, and that's what's really helped me get to where I am right now with running.
Awesome. Thank you so much. Reese, can you tell us a little bit about your, what you do to specifically adapt, and how your advice for others who want to kind of do this?
Yeah,
Not me. I don't want to.
I still think you should. I think you should.
I still think I should not.
So I didn't really have any sort of issues, luckily. I would, if you're wanting to go skydiving, I would call ahead to wherever it is that you're going. You shouldn't have any issues either, as long as you're able to pull the parachute cord. That's really the main thing that they're concerned about. So as long as you do have the ability to move your arms to grab the parachute cord, you should be fine. But even if you don't, you probably, being that you have to go tandem, which means attached to another person, even if you can't grab the parachute cord yourself, I would say that you could have them to pull it for you, because that is why you are attached to a person tandem, because you're attached to a professional that has done this, thousands and thousands of times, so that if anything goes wrong, you have someone there attached to you to make sure that you're all right, because you have a lot more time than you would think while you're, just free falling when you jump out of the plane. But I mean, you do have to start slowing down at some point, or you are going to run into issues. But I think that your biggest hurdle really is just the mental struggle with yourself of, overcoming the will to stay in the airplane and to not jump out of a perfectly good airplane. But the overcoming of that that's pretty much, that's what the thrill is. That's where the adrenaline comes from. So, that's usually what is being sought out when you're, specifically going to do this. You're wanting that sort of a reaction. So yeah, I haven't really had any sort of issues with skydiving, but I would definitely call ahead to check where the place is that you're wanting to do it at first. I have been talking with this guy that is in Colorado, that he's now actually totally blind. He is an ex-military guy he's totally blind, and he actually base jumps and skydives completely by himself. And
I know
he
him.
uses. Do you? Oh, yeah, he's a really cool guy. He does a bunch of stuff actually. He does like whitewater rafting and mountain climbing.
He does
a bunch
right?
of stuff.
Yeah. Joe and I both know him, I think.
Oh,
because he was at the marathon.
What is his name?
I can't think of it, but I do know him.
He was the speaker at the breakfast.
See, it's a small world here with these crazy blind athletes.
Yeah. So if you're going to, and I'm still on the fence about doing that. I haven't been able to find a place locally around here that will do it. So it, yeah, that's I would make sure that you have some tandem skydives. Obviously, that legally you have to, but
Yeah.
yeah, definitely have some tandem skydives before you do that, because you're jumping out and you're only going to be going off of this little device that will vibrate when you need to pull your chute. And from there, he does use an earpiece to kind of guide him to get to the ground, but that's a lot more difficult than if you have essentially a sighted guide on your back that is steering you. So yeah, that whenever I do attempt that, I'm sure I will actually hit some challenges. Hopefully not too many, but yeah, I might.
I think you need to tell us about that, because I think we need to. You need a cheering audience there for that. Let us know when you're going to do that. I'm very interested. Although nothing that you have said has made me want to do it. Free fall, pulling the cord, anything, all the things coming out of your mouth make me realize that my decision is okay. I don't know if anybody has questions for you all. I'm kind of hoping that they do. If you do have a question, if you could put it in the chat, that would be much more helpful. If you have to raise your hand, that's fine, but we'll go with the chat. If Ben, you can read the chat questions, that would be helpful. Thank you. I heard it come through my thing, but I was talking. So.
How do you feel about using a headset and running and listening to a coach telling you directions and visual cues?
Let's see. I've never actually done that, but I have toyed around with the concept of it. And because one thing I wish I've been trying to find a good watch that a good audio watch that really does a good job of doing pace and distance. But
that is a thing. Yeah.
It's typically I can get on the mile. I get an update of what your last mile was this pace. And it's like, well, I would have liked to have been able to break it down into better increments and be able to have real-time pacing. But I actually think for a race, yeah, I would definitely, it'd have to be one ear, because I like to be able to hear what's going on around me, because that's one of the safest things. But just that's the safety issues with it. I understand it's from what I've read from other races where they've tried concepts with it, there are some flaws in it, but I do like the idea of being able to. One thing, someone asked me about how I run solo recently, and I said, well, in a race, it's not terrible because everybody's typically going in the same direction. When I'm out in the neighborhood, I got to decide if that blob in front of me, I've got to make a second decision to see if I have to go, are they coming at me? Are they going away from me? And that's kind of, yeah. So for racing, I actually think it'd be a lot easier for me to be like this, someone just chatting with me like, hey, where your mileage, but water stations, aid stations, that's some issues where I'd have to, we've even with a guide that gets messy trying to figure out, I grab something and it turns out to be Gatorade when I thought it was going to be water, or just trying to, there's a lot of things that need to be worked out in that and the last race I did, Boston Marathon, they have aid stations on both sides of the street. And we were having to do these fancy dances of trying to decide, I'm typically on my guy's left shoulder. We can't get to the left side of the road for them to grab the water and hand it to me. So we need to go to the right side. So we got to switch sides. But if you're tethered, you can't switch sides. And there were just all kinds of issues with that. And the last two marathons I've done, they've allowed the para athletic division with a head start. So the Boston Marathon, they gave us a 10-minute head start they let all the pros go, and then they let us go, and they started the rest of the field 10 minutes behind us. And so I was running for the first 5 miles, I was running about 7:10, 7:15 mile pace. So it took about 5 miles for the field to catch me. But then once the field catches you, it doesn't stop. Like they're passing me at 5-minute mile pace and trying to navigate. You're navigating less people, but there's people passing us. So it's trying to decide which side of where to be the safest place is kind of tricky with someone just doing the headset navigation. So it's in a smaller race without 30,000 people, I think could be feasible, but some of these bigger races, it can be the other elements around you are the issue. Like
Thank you very much.
I feel comfortable with myself, but predicting other people around me is the problem.
My dad once told my sister that when you're driving, you just stay exactly where you are and let them go around you. So this is the advice that I use when I tell other blind athletes. I'm like, if I run because I will run by myself in my own neighborhood. I will not do it anywhere else because I mean, okay, it's a calculated risk. I might run into something, but it's worth it to me to be able to get out.
Right.
But I just stay in exactly the same place, and the blob coming toward me is gonna have to go around me. I don't know what to tell them.
Well, it was goofy in the marathon. There were about 3 of us together. So there was 3 of us together, 2 guides, and I think one person didn't. One person was a T13 that was running without a guide. This golf cart comes flying up on us and says, "The field's coming, get out of the way." And I yell, "Where do you want us to go?" And he goes, "I don't know." And I'm like, we should have thought about this before the race started as to how to handle 32 blind or amputees out on the course. And your solution is just yell, "Get out of the way. The field's coming." I'm like, we should have worked on this and had a better plan than just yelling, "Get out of the way."
I saw a question in the chat from Danielle. She wants to know how this vibrating thing that tells you when you need to pull your ripcord, which I don't even want to talk about, works.
It is so you have one already. It's called an altimeter, and it basically just tells your altitude. So this is the thing that you use to gauge when you pull the chute, and this is one literally that just vibrates whenever you hit the level that you need to pull. So you have one of these anytime, like already as you jump, but this is actually, I mean, I guess this is, well, I guess it wouldn't specifically be made for blind people. Like when you're free falling, everything is going really, really fast. You're going about 120 miles an hour. Everything's really loud. So I could definitely see why you would want one that vibrates anyway. So it's probably actually wasn't made for blind people, but it is really, really accessible if, it vibrates. So it's inadvertently basically a accommodation.
All right. Well, thank you all. I think you can anticipate us having you back at some time in the future. I'm really hoping that when we are in person next year, we can go back to doing the breakout sessions like we did before, and that maybe we can, get some equipment and do some hands-on type things to really demonstrate to members, the capability of all of us as blind people to still engage in these awesome sports. So thank you guys very, very much.
You're welcome.
All right. We are going to move on to our next presenter. And I did see that question in the chat, and I will make sure that it gets to Reese. And if you do chat, Reese, there is a question on there that is for you if you want to answer it. All right. So today we are going to talk about financial resilience. And here to talk about that is Matthew Handy from Stable Accounts. And some of our members had gone to, when they were at National Convention this summer, did not realize that this was something that they were qualified to use and how that could impact them financially and how helpful that could be. And so we are happy to have Matthew here with us because we really want people to know that this service does exist. So welcome. And I think you're on as a co-host, so you should be able to unmute yourself.
Okay, thanks for having me. This is an honor for me. So I'll say good morning to everybody. So a little bit about me first. I'm 23 years old, originally from Hopkinsville, Kentucky. I moved to Frankfurt about a year ago, and I joined Treasurer Ball's team. I'm her executive assistant. Like I said, I've been in this role for about a year. I took over Stable in April, and so I'm still learning, but this is probably one of the most rewarding parts, is getting to present to different organizations and different groups across Kentucky. I'm a student at Midway University, an uncle of 5, and then a godfather of 6. So when I'm not working or in Frankfurt, I'm back in Hoptown spending time with my family. But enough about me. So we're going to talk about Stable. And I've got, let me see. There we go. So I don't know, Carolyn Wheeler may have spoke to you all about a year or so ago. I'm not too sure, but I'm just going to go through what Stable is.
Nobody from Stable has spoke to us, I do not believe.
Okay. So I'm going to go through, well, that's a great thing. I'm glad to be the first. So what this presentation is, it's just going to go through what Stable is, how it was founded, and then obviously how you all can get involved, how you all can get accounts. But ABLE, you'll hear me refer to it as either Stable or ABLE. So ABLE is the Achieving a Better Life Experience. That was the ABLE Act of 2014, which was passed by Congress, and it created a savings and investments account for individuals with disabilities. And this was the case, so they were able to save money without impacting eligibility for certain benefits like SSI or Medicaid. So ABLE was created for this function. ABLE is a hybrid account of functionality. So you got 3 points that I want to kind of draw into. It's the 529 college savings account, a checking account, or a special needs trust. So those will be the 3 main functions for ABLE or Stable account. So why do we call it Stable? So Stable is Kentucky's ABLE program. So it was administered by Treasurer Ball's office and launched in 2016, December 13th of 2016. And it's offered to Kentucky residents through Ohio's program. So we work closely with Ohio and their team in administering this program. And they've got about 6 people that work on this program. So they are very dedicated to this cause, and they're really good people to work with. And this is no cost to Kentucky. So Ohio had just started this in 2013. They wanted, obviously as many account holders as they could get. We found out about the program and we were like, we want to get involved. So again, this was no cost to Kentucky at all. The benefits of an ABLE account is simply 3 things: ownership, financial independence, and tax benefits. So with the ownerships, the account is owned by the individual with the disability. So that gives them the independence and the freedom to do whatever it means with their money. Financial independency, it eliminates the spend down and increase the amount of short and or long-term savings. And then the last thing, tax benefits. So an individual with a Stable account may qualify for multiple tax benefits each year. So that's good to note. A lot of people will ask, well, what's the eligibility for an account? And to see who qualifies, we actually have a test or a quiz on our account at stable.com, stableaccounts.com. So you're able to go take that quiz. It's a really like a 5-minute quiz, and it'll walk you through. But the big thing I want to draw your attention to is you have to have had the disability occur prior to the age of 26. And the reason I'm flagging that is because it's right now in the House Committee, Ways and Means. So what they're trying to do is they're trying to bump the age from 26 to 46. And that will actually increase our margins, especially here in Kentucky, because we have lots of veterans that would qualify if they bump that to 46. So that's something that we're watching closely here in our office. But as it stands right now, you have to have the disability occur prior to the age of 26. Plus one of the following, eligible for SSI or SSDI due to a disability or condition listed on the Social Security Administration's list of compassionate allowance conditions, or a self-certification, which is you've been diagnosed by a physician. It's a physical or mental impairment that caused marked or severe functional limitations. And there's two things I want to kind of mention there. The condition have had to have lasted or is expected to last 1 year. And you don't need a written diagnosis. So that one is important because a lot of people, when they get a stable account, they're afraid that they're going to need to present something right away. That's not the case, but we do ask that you have all of the documentation that would be required if for some reason the IRS or the state, asks for it. So that's something that we like to, make sure you have everything that you need, make sure you have all the documents on file. You won't necessarily send them to us, but again, if you're asked for those documents, you've got them. As far as the enrollment in a stable account, it is a free online enrollment at stablekentucky.com. It's quick and easy. It's about 20 minutes, and the minimum opening deposit is $25. So it used to be $50 not too long ago, but the minimum deposit fee is $25. And this can be done by an individual with the disability, so the account holder, or an authorized legal representative. So that could be parent, guardian, power of attorney. So there's two ways you can open an account. As far as funding the account, once it's open, this really does work like a bank account, essentially. So you've got electronic funds transfer, which would go from your bank account to the stable account, a check, so you could send a check directly to Stable Kentucky, or payroll deduction. So if you're working, they'll automatically take that out and put that towards your stable account. So again, under the funding aspect, so this is where you'll start to see the breakdown of how much money per year from all sources that you're able to put into an account. So if not employed, it's about $15,000. And if employed, up to $27,000 per year. And that does include the wages up to an additional $12,000. So the system automatically rejects access contribution. So anything over the amount that you're supposed to give, that's automatically rejected. So you don't have to necessarily worry about, overfunding, if I could use that term, the account, unless you wanted to. But again, it's not going to force you to do that, if that makes sense. Now, there is another thing that's kind of interesting about a stable account, and it's the gifting page that allows anyone to give financial gifts directly into the stable account. So the gifts do not count as a resource or income. It's a gift. So let's say you just celebrated your birthday and somebody wrote you a check. So it would have to actually be made out to the stable. So Jan Doe, stable account number. But you'll deposit that like you would a check into your regular bank account. And that, again, does not count as a resource or income. That is just a gift. So that's another good option or a good incentive for an account. Your investment options. So there's quite a few investing options that you get when you get a stable account. The 4 Vanguard mutual funds, ranging from conservative to aggressive. 1 principal protected FDIC insured option, And then we'll break down. So you get a bank safe, 100% cash, income option of 80% bonds, 20% stock. Conservative growth options are 60% bonds and 40% stocks. Moderate growth is anywhere between 60% stocks and 40% bonds. And then the growth option is 80% and 20%. So that is another thing to kind of flag as, if you're mentioning stable to somebody, particularly somebody that would want to invest in stable, that would be something that would be worth noting as far as our options, as far as investing. Spending your mutual funds. So once you got your stable account open, I did have an individual, I helped him open an account. And he says, well, what do I spend the money on? And it's really, we have our, difference of opinion as it relates to what the money can be used for, but it really draws down to a few key things. So housing and rent, assistive technology, basic living expenses, financial management, transportation, health and wellness, education, and legal fees. The spending on this account must relate to the disability or help maintain or improve independency or the quality of life. So again, when you say that, that could be a whole slew of things. But when you go to certain stores, there actually is a feature on the card. If you get a stable card, which I'll talk about here in a little bit, there's a feature on there that, will automatically, let's say you went to Walmart and you got some things, it will take what is considered spendable, and then whatever's left, you'll have to pay that out of pocket. So that is one thing about getting a stable card, is you don't have to worry about, well, can I buy this on my stable account, or is this, just a want and not a need? But again, the key components to what you can spend your money on once you've got a stable account, really just ask yourself the question, does it help or maintain or improve my health, my independence, or my quality of life? And if the answer is yes, then 9 times out of 10, it is eligible for spending on the stable account. Spending from your stable account, there's checkings and savings, like I said. So this does act like a bank account. It transfers to the personal checking or savings of yours. You have the option of a third party. You can pay with a third party check, or the stable Visa card, which I like to promote. I do like to promote the stable Visa card. The stable card is a loadable and prepaid card that can be used anywhere Visa is accepted. It's loadable, provides controlled access to spending. It tracks expenses online. So just like a regular bank account, you'll get a bank statement every month of what you spent. There are protections, so no overdraft fees, no cash access. You're able to limit merchants and the types of expenses. So like I mentioned, let's say you really love going to Target, but you don't want to spend a lot of money in Target. So you can limit the amount of money you spend in Target. You can limit what you buy in Target. The card is really a good way, I think, to, have financial security, and also manage your finances in a more efficient way. So I'll always be a supporter and an advocate for the stable Visa card. The last few things I'm going to touch on is the Ssi considerations. So balances over 100,000 count as a resource, but SSI merely suspended and not terminated. So if you hold on to the money from one calendar month to the next, then housing expenditures count as a resource. So account holders' own wages still count as income, even if it's contributed to a stable account. So let's say you're putting money into your stable account, that money is still being allocated as income. So there is no breakdown there, which is another thing I like to stress. If an account holder passes away, account will be passed to the account holder's estate. So the estate administrator notifies us here at Stable, and then we can take over the access of the account. If the account holder does not have a will, then the account will then go through the normal probate process, which then also gets turned over to the state as well. So a lot of people want to know if for some reason, for the unforeseen, if I pass away, what happens to the account? So if there is no will in place, that gets turned over to the state. If there is in fact a will, the estate notifies us, and then we go through the proper channels of making sure that money is either returned, or in some cases, they have the Stable account as a life insurance policy. So I did have a case where an individual actually passed away, and they used the money that was in the Stable account to fund the funeral expenses. So that is an option when you get a Stable account as well. Medicaid services. So the money in the Stable account is better protected from Medicaid payback than money in any other account. Medicaid can ask for a payback in some cases, but there are protections. So those protections include limitations, outstanding bills, deductions, and funeral expenses, as I touched on a little earlier. And the annual cost for a Stable account, it is really cheap. So the monthly maintenance fee is $325 per month. It's $975 charged to your account quarterly. And the assessed base fee, so Kentucky residents between the 0.19% to 0.33%. So again, this is probably the cheapest maintenance fee for a service that we offer, which is really great. And the last thing is a Stable account versus a special needs trust. And the way we like to break that down is trust can make distributions to Stable accounts. Trust can accept unlimited cash and non-cash assets. A unique Stable account benefit, it borders spending power. So i.e. examples include housing and food, transportation, just to say the least. This is state tax deductions for Stable contributions. No federal or state income tax on the earnings that you have, and can be established, administered, and owned by the individual with the disability. So again, when we talk financial freedom, financial independence, this is probably one of the most efficient programs tailored to individuals with disabilities, because it gives them that financial freedom that is longed for. And it's your money. You should have the right to say where that money goes, how you spend that money. And we are glad to be giving this to Kentuckians, again, at little to no cost. So that's all that I have, and I will answer any questions that you all may have.
Thank you very much. I know that the School for the Blind here in this area, that's one of the things that they help families set up, and as the kids are getting out of high school. And that's how we found out about it. We didn't actually know either. So that's awesome. You guys are doing great work here in Kentucky. If you guys do have questions, if you drop them in the chat, that'd be great. Or raise your hand if you are unable to access chat. Ooh, see, look, you did such a good job. They're not even going to ask you anything. That is impressive. You were very thorough. We very much appreciate you. And hopefully, if we do end up with, because I think this is what will happen later, people will contact me, and I will be in touch, and maybe we can either set up one of our monthly meetings for you to come back and speak, or we can be in touch via email.
Yeah, and you've got my personal cell, yes. So reach out to me anytime.
Okay.
And again, this is a great organization. So I'm glad to be here today. And I'm hoping that you all are enjoying the conference so far.
Oh, you do have one question. Is there a, was it a debit card? I'm sorry, I was trying to remember. Was there a debit card that you can use with the stable account? I believe that was the question. If I'm wrong.
No,
Yeah,
they were asking if there's an ATM fee with the stable
Oh,
cards.
sorry, ATM fee. Thank you. I couldn't remember.
No, so there is no fee for that. For an ATM fee, no. But again, I will stress that, again, with this card, there are no kind of fees, overdraft fees, all of that is flagged. So you don't have to worry about any of that.
Awesome. Thank you very much. We appreciate you coming out on a Saturday morning to talk to us.
Anytime.
Awesome. Thank you. And I will be in touch for sure.
Thank you. Take care.
All right. Well, take care. We're going to talk about resources to establish resiliency, especially for those who have become blind, although not limited to that. So a good half of the art of resilience is a good half of the art of living is resilience. And here to talk about being resilient and using some resources is from APH, Alan Lavelle, who is going to talk to us about the Connect Center.
Hi, Jane. Thank you. Can you hear me all right?
Yes, I can.
All right, great. Thanks so much for having me. And I will just apologize in advance. I have the head cold, similar to Sandra Williams mentioned earlier. Right? So I apologize if I'm painful to listen to. So I'll try to get
Kentucky.
through this. Turns out we can still get illnesses and it not be COVID. So, I'm glad of that anyway. So yeah, I'm Alan Lovell, and I'm here to talk about the APH Connect Center. If you have been blind for long or have worked or lived in the field for long, no doubt you're probably familiar with the American Printing House for the Blind, which is here in Louisville, which is a very old agency that manufactures products for the blind, educational aids, independent living tools, and of course, printing of books in Braille, large print, audio recordings, and now digital downloadable formats. About 3.5 years ago, now we partnered up with the American Foundation for the Blind and took on some services that they started many years ago, which is information and referral services that we are now calling the APH Connect Center. And what that is a grouping of resources that come in the form of several websites and an information and referral hotline phone number that a person can call. And we provide information and resources on the topic of blindness and visual impairment or anything related to blindness and visual impairment to those who need it. And so one way to find our resources, the easiest way, is our landing page, which is aphconnectcenter.org. I'm a little gun shy with doing a screen share. I'm a JAWS user myself, and I just don't want to share the wrong screen. So if we have a moderator who may be willing to put that up, aphconnectcenter.org, that would be great. Otherwise, it's okay. You can look it up yourself too. aphconnectcenter.org is the landing page that we created for several associated sites. You might be familiar with Vision Aware. It's got its own URL, visionaware.org, which is curated information. Thank you. Curated information for adults and seniors who are blind. Then we have familyconnect.org, resources for families of legally blind children. And then we have APH Career Connect, that is resources for job seekers. And then now we have the Transition Hub, and the National Transition Conversation, which are new sites that we've added. They are vaults of information that we are building on. They're probably the fastest growing right now for transition age folks and the transition instructors across the United States to share ideas and information for those of us who might be transitioning from high school to college, or from college or high school to employment. When we took on these services from the American Foundation for the Blind, at one point they had a mentoring program. When we took these on, this Connect Center, there were 2 of us that started this. And so we obviously did not have the staff and legal resources to properly vet a mentoring program that potentially would put perhaps minors in touch with adults, and and there's a lot of legal risks there. So our approach now is to put professionals in touch with larger groups to share resources on a larger and a more virtual level. And as obviously when we get back to in person more, it won't always be virtual, but larger groups. And so we have recently hired a manager for this APH Connect Center. His name is Richard Reda, and he has a long career in the transition end of things. So with all of those resources, we also have an 800 number for people to call, which has been around for over 40 years. It was started by AFB. And when we took on these services from them, when we partnered up, we took the same phone number, which is 800-232-5463. And this number is available for people to call when they have questions relating to blindness. So what we get most often are situations where someone has lost sight or dealing with vision loss for the very first time. As I mentioned, our sites pretty much span the entirety of life with the information that we put up there, from birth to great Grammys, as we used to try to say. And so when it comes to losing sight at a midpoint in life, obviously that can be traumatic. I commend our speakers who came on before me, especially the what was the term that Jane used, the crazy blind athletes. I think you should rename that segment just to Crazy Blind Athletes. I got a kick out of that. They are obviously very resilient and have their attitude and outlook have taken them far in life. And they're not going to have any problems moving forward, I don't believe. But, not everybody is that resilient off the cuff. Not everybody knows exactly what the next steps are. And that's why we get calls, and it's really on a daily basis, validates why we exist. If it's someone calling for their mother or grandmother or great grandmother, somebody who's got macular degeneration, and having to deal with their independence or their loss of independence, where do they find resources? What's their next steps? Or if it's a business executive or a mother of 5 kids or whomever it happens to be, vision loss is very random, and it doesn't happen to live in a particular demographic. It affects all of us, or every demographic, I should say. And it's very traumatic, vision loss. So we part of the websites and landing page that I mentioned earlier is powered by a national directory of services, which has over 3,000 resources in it. So from the landing page, obviously, you can go right to our directory of services. Again, the landing page is aphconnectcenter.org. One of the links on that website is directly to the directory of services, but you can perform searches on any one of the sites that I mentioned: Family Connect, Career Connect, Vision Aware, and you get a unique set of search results based on your search that draw from that directory of services. So adults and seniors may get older individuals who are blind OIB programs in their state. And of course, the state agencies, rehab agencies for the blind. You will find information on eye diseases, ophthalmologists, every nonprofit and or for-profit provider of services for the blind, whether you are receiving independent living skills training, orientation and mobility, assistive technology. We're able to find those resources for you and put you in touch with them. And that does span all of the United States and of course Canada. So then, if you can hear my dog barking, I apologize. She sometimes wants to add things. All right, so moving forward, all of these services are there for individuals who need them. But I will tell you, we don't advertise ourselves as a crisis hotline, but we do find ourselves helping people in crisis more than we actually anticipated. We do subscribe to the National AIRS organization. That is the Alliance of Information and Referral Systems. This agency is the overarching agency for all information and referral services in the United States, particularly, for example, 211 and Adult Protective Services. But they help us provide information in a way, the words that we should use to keep the callers safe, to keep us safe, and to help the most. So if needed, we can call upon their resources to provide much better and safer information. So I'll give you an example, and this is most recent. Just this week, myself and my colleague Sharon Huey, there are two of us that are actually on the phones. We're dealing with a gentleman in New Mexico who is 67 years old and has recently lost his sight very rapidly. He lives on his own. He has no family to speak of nearby, only a couple of friends who have helped him, for one thing, helped him find our number by doing a web search. And his sight went so quickly that he still hasn't gotten an actual diagnosis. At one point, when his first eye went, he was stat flighted to a hospital because he lives in a rural area, to a hospital about an hour and a half away. They did not find anything wrong with his eyes. He still had good sight in his left eye, and this person was concerned about the cost of all of the treatment that he was receiving. He elected to go back home without an official diagnosis, and his attitude is, well, I know I'm going blind. I can take my time to find out why, because this is getting too expensive. But now he has lost sight in his left eye very rapidly. When I spoke to him on Wednesday, he only had one tiny sliver of sight at the top of his left eye that he was using to help him help himself operate his phone, which of course we know now most of us are using these smooth touchscreen phones. And without already having some sort of training or knowledge on how to use phones, he had no frame of reference. So, he did a thing where he had his friends or whomever who was helping him out stop by, put our number into the dial field so that he could call us. And so we have worked with him to provide him our own resources over the phone as fellow blind people. Here are some things that can help for now, and here are some agencies that you'll need to get a hold of to get yourself in rehab for the blind. As of yesterday afternoon, he lost his remaining vision and is unable to dial or unable to answer his phone. and had been on the phone with my colleague Sharon, who is really just going above and beyond to help this gentleman. She has coordinated with the local 211 protective services. She even contacted the local fire chief, the local rehab services for the blind, because he is in crisis. He is alone in his apartment, unable to navigate to get himself, to the store, to food, to the resources that he needs to survive. And so oftentimes we find ourselves doing the legwork for people who have found themselves in these situations. This is not the first or the last situation we'll have like that, where a person has found themselves truly in crisis. And how lucky we are, those of us who do have friends, support groups, support systems of friends and family who have been there for us to help us through these hard times. But we learn more and more that not everybody is so lucky and are truly on their own. And so that is why we exist. We talk to folks, we empathize with folks, we provide information about the assistive technology that they may already have in their hands, such as a phone, how to access the assistive technology that is built into our modern devices, and recommendations on devices that could help them depending on their goals and aspirations in life. Particularly again, while they are waiting for their state level services to kick in. I found myself describing to someone the basics of cane travel and sighted guide, voiceover on a phone. I have saved this one voicemail I got a couple years ago from a lady who I had helped access the voiceover function on her phone, and then I just basically walked her through the steps of downloading the Seeing AI app, which is an artificial intelligence app that has a variety of functions. One of those functions is scanning print and reading it aloud. And so I walked her through the installation process of that, and she called me back and left this message, and it's a tearful message. When you first hear it, you can tell the person's crying, and your first reaction is, oh no, what is this? What is this? This sounds terrible. But once she eventually finds her words and can articulate, she's thanking me for something that's just sort of, it's nothing new to me, and I didn't do anything that I felt that was going above and beyond. It was something that we know in the field already existed. But that one little thing gave her back the independence, that a little independence, that she's able to read her mail again, that she's able to use her phone again, access and dial numbers, and she through her tears just said, you all are the only ones who have spent the time to help me get that one little thing back. Another example of talking to an older lady, a senior citizen. She says, what bothers me the most is that I can't even put the toothpaste on my toothbrush without my husband's help anymore. And this is just such a small little thing. I said, well, maybe for now, try putting the toothpaste directly into your mouth instead. And it was a eureka moment for her. Wow, that's amazing. And that's something that we were able to help with just in the interim. And going beyond that, we got them connected with their state agencies, their state services for the blind, again, through conversation and our ability to empathize because of our years of working in the field and our years of being blind people ourselves, can help them just that much. So that is the Connect Center. Again, you can get a hold of us by either calling 800-232-5463, emailing connectcenter@aph.org, or the landing page, aphconnectcenter.org. You know, there are links all over the place on those sites that get you directly to us. I should also tell you that for each of the sites, Family Connect, Career Connect, Vision Aware, we have a manager who is solely in charge of content for those sites. The content is in the form of blog posts, researched articles, webinars. We have lots of webinars on lots of topics that you should check out. And then behind each of those managers is a team of peer advisors. Peer advisors in this case are folks who have worked in the field for a long time. Many of them might be retired, many of them are educators, but they focus on writing content for our sites, keeping it up to date with current trends. You know, you'll find articles on there that may be seasonal, may have to do with, for example, shopping Christmas ideas for people who are blind or visually impaired. Others might be evergreen in nature. That means that they might have been there a while and they're just as valid today as they were when they were written. You'll find articles on technology, how to make our kitchens accessible with modern appliances, things of that nature. So this is just sort of touching on the properties that make up the Connect Center. As I mentioned, I and my counterpart Sharon are the two folks who answer your phone calls on the information and referral hotline. We did start as 2 people in this department. Now we have 8, and we are spread all across the country. Several of us are actually still here in Louisville. I've worked for APH for 25 years, and I still have an office there. And I do go there now about twice a week, but that's only been for the last month or so. I've been working from home since COVID. So I am available to take questions. You can call me. You can put questions in the chat, or Jane, if there are questions already, perhaps let me know of them. And thank you all for listening.
Seen any. Thank you very much. I've not seen any questions in the chat thus far, although I will tell you all that the information, as far as the contact information, is listed in the chat. Phil or Ben put that up there. It just tells me the Kentucky moderator. I don't know which one of you all did that, but thank you very much. It has the phone number and the website address.
Thank you for sharing the site too, the screen share.
Oh, yeah, also not me, but we have a great tech team.
Yeah, you guys are
They're
right
great.
on point. I mean, it was like it was coordinated effort right off the bat. So, and it wasn't.
So yeah, if you guys have a question and you don't think of it today, like I said, we've shared that content info. And if you all get in contact with me, I do have Alan's email address and I can get him questions as well. We really appreciate it. It's great knowing that there is that service out there. I don't think a lot of us actually even knew what it was. Possibly just, yes.
Well, we are about 3.5 years in now. And I mentioned these were services started by AFB. Actually, back in 1926, AFB started a print directory of services that became thick as a phone book. And about the year 2000 is when they created the first of these websites. And so part of what we've been doing is bringing them up to date and shifting them to a modern day platform for accessibility, preserving what they started and adding to it. And APH has always been known as a beacon of resources. And so now we have specific channels in which you can reach us and access those resources.
Oh, APH has been an amazing friend to the National Federation of the Blind of Kentucky. And not only do we appreciate you all coming and presenting, we appreciate the partnerships that you guys have provided as far as giving us a space to do Bell and some other outreach things. Our kids always look forward to that. It's not every Bell that gets to have a huge Braille themed museum downstairs with lots of people who are willing to play dress up with our kids and do plays and give them a hands-on experience. So I think in that we are ever grateful and unmatched as far as that resource.
It really, and one last thing, in case you don't know of this too, along with this partnership with AFB, is that APH is now housing all of the Helen Keller archives. We have a really cool museum that we're getting ready to add. There's a big construction project afoot that's going to add on to the front of APH and the museum, and it's going to be directed around these Helen Keller archives. We have her desk that she worked at when she was an employee of AFB and all of her writings. So wait for that. That's going to be really cool.
Amazing. Well, we're actually going to speak to somebody in a little while who went to the Helen Keller Institute for training. So I think that fits right in. That's extraordinary.
Great.
Thank you for sharing that.
Thank you.
All right. If everybody needs to move around, we are going to have our very first fit break. Yay! And this fit break is brought to us by Stephanie Davis, a local GL member, and her children, Jackson and Parker, who are some of our NFB kids.
Hello and welcome to the Davis Family Fit Break. I'm Stephanie.
I'm Jackson. I'm Parker.
We're going to get you up and moving. So the first thing we're going to do to get our heart rate up is we are going to walk in place for 30 seconds. Ready and go.
This is going to be tough.
Gotta get that heart rate up, Parker. Some people go fast and some people go slow. Whatever is your ability. Keep going. Don't make the noises, buddy. All right, and stop. Our next thing that we have for you, scoot back a little bit, Parker, is we are going to do 30 arm circles forward. Scoot closer together, please.
We don't want to hit each other.
All right, ready, set, go. Forward. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Forward, Parker. 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14. Come on, Parker. 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, 24, 25, 26, 27, 28, 29, 30. All right. Stretch them out a little bit. Now we're going to do 30 arm circles backward. Ready and go. 1, 2, backward. 3, 4, 5, slow Jackson. 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, 24, 25, 26, 27, 28, 29, 30.
Oh, I hit my palms together.
Next up, come on back over, Parker. Come on over. You gotta do the high knees with us. He gave up on us. All right, we're gonna do 30 high knees. So what you're gonna do is you're gonna take your hands and bend them at the elbows. All right, that's good. Jackson, stop for a second. Bend them at the elbows so that your hands are facing the ground. The palms are facing the ground. And you're gonna bring your knee up to touch the palm of your hand. We're gonna do this 30 times. Ready and go. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20. Slow down. 21, 22, 23, 24, 25, 26, 27, 28, 29, 30. We'll give everybody a second to catch up with us. You may stop. All right, we got your heart rate up and going. Our last thing before our cool down is we're gonna do shoulder taps. So you're gonna take your right palm and touch your left shoulder. Bring it back down and then take your left palm and touch your right shoulder. We're gonna do this for a count of 30. Ready and go. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, 24, 25, 26, 27, 28, 29, 30. And our last thing is a 30-second walk to cool down. So you're just walking at your leisure at this point. Ready and go. 1, 2, 3, 4. All right, and thank you so much for joining us. We hope this was a great fit break for you. Goodbye, everyone.
Oh, thank you, Davis family. It's always great to see the kids. I think that's one of the things I miss about being in person, is running over to childcare and watching all the friends play together. And I think the kids probably miss that a little bit too. All right, so we are going to talk about, and I think the fact that Alan came right before this one is awesome. So talk about resilience in training. So whether you have been blind your whole life or whether you have become blind, how does training impact your being able to be resilient? I know that for Danielle, after when she was getting ready to complete high school, she realized that she would need some extra training to be successful in the college environment. And she chose to go to the Helen Keller Institute so that she could both address the issues of being deaf and being blind. Another one of our young members, Taryn Seif, had, I believe, asked to go to the Louisiana Center LCB when she was 16, when she went to her first convention. She had mentioned it to myself, and I believe we talked about it with her counselor. But later on, she discovered that, sorry, I was hearing something in my audio in my ear, sorry. Later on, she discovered that that was actually going to be kind of a battle because they wanted her to try college and to try some other things first. She did go to her first year of college, and she continued to express to her counselor that she felt that this additional training would make her more successful. And I think about 2 years after the first time she asked her counselor, she finally was given permission to go to the Louisiana Center for the Blind. Laura Felty-Stevens is going to be moderating the panel and working with Taryn and Danielle to present their stories.
Thanks, Jane. You kind of helped me out with my introductions there.
Oh, I'm so sorry.
That's okay. Anyway, Taryn Seif and Danielle Burton are going to be talking about their experiences as they've gained resilience through seeking specialized training to help, with their blindness and, and through disability training. As Jane said, Taryn graduated from KSB a couple of years ago and went to U of L and, wants to find out more about, how she can be independent as a blind person. And one thing when Danielle and Taryn and I were talking about this panel, Taryn indicated a big difference between having people who are blind provide instruction as opposed to people who are sighted. And she's going to tell you a little bit about her thoughts in regards to that. Are you there, Taryn? Danielle, are you there?
Yes, I am here.
Okay, well, let's go ahead with you and then we'll go back to Taryn. Danielle, you talked about, well, first of all, you attended Blind Inc. in Minneapolis, Minnesota as a during high school, and it's one of their summer programs while you were in high school. And then later you attended Blind, or you didn't attend, you actually worked in the summer program at Blind Inc. And then you decided that you needed some further training as a deaf-blind individual. So you had the opportunity to actually go to 2 different types of centers. So could you share with us your perspectives and how the different trainings that you received at those centers have made an impact on you?
Sure. So for me, I really appreciated being able to attend an NFB training center at Blind Inc. when I was in high school. I think that allowed me to get some of the fundamental skills from blind adults to be able to succeed in college. I did go to college for 3 years before going to the Helen Keller National Center. And that did allow me to succeed for those 3 years, functioning, I guess you could say, as a hearing blind person. I'll just say that, we talk about how many of us try to pass as sighted while I was trying to pass as a hearing blind person. And when I went, so then I had that positive NFB philosophy when I went into the Helen Keller National Center, which, is kind of a more traditional training center, but having that background allowed me to say, this is what I need, this is what I want, now let's just do it. And knowing what you need and how you're going to achieve that did allow me to be successful at a more traditional type center that allowed me to gain skills with being deaf as well as being blind.
All right. Taryn, I think I heard that your iPhone joined. Are you back with us?
Hello. Can you hear me?
Taryn, there you are. Okay.
Yay. Okay.
Yay.
I'm sorry. I was having some technical difficulties.
Yeah, that happened. Okay. Question. Basically, when we talked the other day, you talked about the differences between having your instructors sighted versus being blind and the different ways they instruct. So could you talk about that?
Yes, I can. So back when I was a KSB student, I didn't really understand this until recently, but most of my teachers were sighted. And honestly, I don't blame them for having the perspective that they did, because it's what they knew. But I think what the main problem was with that was that they tried to treat me sort of like a person with sight, and they kind of wanted me to use that sight, even though I'm learning now and training, because all of my instructors are blind, that some things are just easier without it because it's not very reliable. And it's a really interesting thing to me, because blind people obviously have that perspective of, well, obviously if you're blind, you're going to be using blind techniques. And so I've gotten to learn here that it's just better in general to not treat me like I have sight, if that makes any sense.
Yeah, I think that all of us, Taryn.
Yeah.
Danielle, you talked about since you are deafblind, orientation and mobility, works a little bit differently for you because you can't use your hearing as a reliable source of information around you. So could you talk about that a little bit and how the training that you received helps you to develop orientation and mobility skills?
Yes. So one of the main things that I got out of orientation and mobility training at HKNC was the communication component. Traditionally we're taught as hearing blind people, oh, well, if you get turned around, you listen for traffic, or you listen for other sound cues like doors opening, etc., things like that. I mean, we're taught that, we learn this. But as a deafblind person, I might not hear the traffic until I'm a few feet away, which, doesn't help when you're in a parking lot. Or, the doors opening to a building. You don't hear it till you're probably 5 feet from the door. Well, by that time you found the door. So, learning to actively use a cane to find a familiar landmark instead of just trying to stay put and listen, it's drilled into your head, you stand still and listen, but that doesn't necessarily work. So that was one big thing. The other big thing is hearing blind people typically will ask a passerby about, what's around them. You hear somebody walking past you and you stop them. As a deafblind person, you have to be creative in finding alternative ways to get sighted hearing assistance. And that typically involves using communication cards. And you can create various communication cards. For example, I have one that basically says, can you please guide me across the street because I might not be able to judge the traffic. I have another one that just simply says, I need assistance. Can you help? And that just gets someone close enough to me to be able to communicate with them what I might need. I can also create very specific ones for various situations. I did create cards when I took the train and subway from the center to White Plains, New York, to a guide dog event. And I did this independent way by myself. I used communication cards, one that said, I need such and such train because I had to go into Grand Central and, it's hard to hear there. Nobody that's deafblind can hear anything in Grand Central. So it was very helpful to learn those particular skills and how I can get assistance from the public, how I might be able to use a phone and write down my orders if I'm going into a place. And that has allowed me to use both what I learned from blinding and at HKNC.
Danielle, thanks. And that's very impressive that you traveled through New York City, Grand Central all by yourself. I've done a lot of traveling and that would be scary to me. So I just think that's awesome. At Louisiana Center, you are taking a class that people don't typically think about blind people participating in, and that shop class. So tell us a little bit about.
So in Louisiana, I have to point out, is not the only center that will teach something that is typically not thought of as something blind people can do. In fact, I think that's something that if you went to any of the NFB training centers, you would probably get. But for this particular one, yes, I'm taking shop, and basically we work with power tools. It's really fun, and I am surprised that I enjoy it as much as I do, because I thought I would be so scared of it. but it's come to be like my favorite time of the day. Basically, if I can get my video to work, I can show those of you who can see this, and if not, I will describe it to you, but give me just a second. Hello. So this here is a Braille block. This is what it's like a small wooden rectangle that has these little pegs in them. You can take them out. Whatever. They are forming a Braille cell, so 6 dots for the pegs. And this is the kind of thing that I make with my tools, with the saws, 3 kinds of saws and a drill. And it's really cool that I can do all of this stuff even under learning shades. I wouldn't normally think that I could do that without looking at it, but now I know that now I know better, you know.
Taryn, are you still there?
Yeah, did you lose me?
Yeah, no, there you are.
Did you lose me?
I hear you now.
Okay, what was the last thing you heard?
You were showing your Braille blocks.
Okay. Well, basically what I was getting at was that it's not something that one would normally think a blind person can do. And I have some usable vision, but we are under learning shades all the time. And I would normally think, oh, I will probably need my vision for this. But no, I actually kind of feel safer under the shades than I would if I could actually see the giant blades coming at me, probably.
I would say that is very, very true. I know all of when we have a little bit of vision, sometimes we think we can see things better than we can, and trying to use our vision just gets us into trouble. And I think probably
for sure.
I think that's the same of hearing. I think I try to use my hearing a little bit, and then I get into trouble for it.
All right. Danielle, you kind of touched on this a little bit. Talk about communication, how you deal with communication as a deafblind person.
Well, that can get complicated, so I'll try to break it down. So one of the things is that at HKNC, they have a communication and learning center, which includes everything from Braille to sign language to college readiness to budgeting. I think that's all that it includes. And for me, growing up oral, I realized that sometimes using my hearing and using speech doesn't always work. So I went to HKNC to start learning ASL, and I did learn enough to kind of get by. By the time I enrolled in an ASL program, I could at least have a basic conversation with my ASL 101 teacher in one piece in the first week, which was kind of nice. It made me realize how much I did actually learn. So one of the main things that I focused on was tactile sign, as well as haptics, which is touch signals that you can use as a deafblind person, or a non-deafblind person can use those to convey visual information. I learned quite a bit of that as well while I was there, in addition to some budgeting, for the independent living program.
Taryn, we talked a little bit about this orientation and mobility and how some of the training that you're getting now is different than training that you'd had before, but basically, and things they're trying to make you aware of. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah. So there's been, I just lost my train of thought. I'm sorry. When I had come here, my O&M skills weren't, well, they're still not the best, but they definitely were not very good. So I definitely had a lot to learn in that area, but there were things that I didn't even really consider, because the thing about being under learning shades the entire time is that there's a lot of things I kind of realized I took for granted, like being able to see the color of the streets and being able to see, I don't know, where walls were sometimes, not always, but sometimes. And there's definitely a curve to realizing that and trying to mend it. Like crosswalks, like I have to learn a whole new way of just crossing the street because I can't really see the crosswalks. So it's just been very eye-opening and helpful, because obviously, like we touched on, relying on your vision as a blind person can get you into trouble. And I've definitely encountered that before. So I'm very glad I get to have that opportunity.
Thanks, Taryn. Okay, Danielle, we talked a little bit, in our conversation, and actually Taryn was going to get this question, but actually I'm going to throw it out to both of you, about cooking, skills and techniques that you learned as cooking as a blind person.
So at HKNC, we of course also had independent living, which includes cooking, cleaning, as well as safety in the home. I did learn some deafblind specific cooking skills. For example, hearing blind people might use their hearing to know when the pot is boiling. That doesn't necessarily work if you can't. I learned that you can, if you have your hand on the pot handle, you can feel it vibrate. Also using a more deafblind friendly timer, such as your phone, make sure it's attached to you so that you feel it vibrate. And air fryers that had tactile markings. So there was a lot of stuff that most of it would be the same for any blind person, but just those were a few minor differences as a deafblind person in the kitchen. But the other big aspect was fire alarm safety, doorbells, accessible smoke detectors, bed shakers, of that nature. Something that as a hearing blind person you might not think about is, if you're asleep, how are you going to know if the smoke alarm goes off? Deaf people tend to use a flashing light. Well, that doesn't work either. So we got to learn how the Serene system works. And I do have one now, finally, yay. And so that was a big thing of learning, what do you do if your Serene system breaks? Who are you going to contact? What do you do if you're going somewhere and you're going to need to be alerted to a fire alarm? So that was a big part of independent living as a deafblind person.
I wanted to add that I think it's interesting how you said that the whole pot boiling thing with listening to it, because I use the vibrations too. I find it more reliable.
That's interesting. I was told you could hear it. So growing up, I would stand there and try to hear it bubble, and then I learned that I don't do that.
It depends. I mean, if you have a really quiet enough room, probably, but I just think it's easier to feel it, and because sometimes there's a lot going on and you can't really pay attention to that one thing.
And yet, why don't you share some of the things that you've cooked in a rice cooker? Because I was pretty impressed by this. I didn't know all the different things you could make in a rice cooker.
Yeah. If you're a dorm student, I recommend the rice cooker. I mean, it's a must-have. Some things I've managed to cook in it is taco soup, chili, pasta, macaroni, spaghetti, of course, rice. Trying to think. I've actually done, I boil eggs in the rice cooker. And you can, if you absolutely have to, you can kind of make toast. It's not as good as with a toaster, but it's definitely doable if you oil the bottom of the pot real good and get it hot enough. So you can do that. Steaming vegetables. I fix like a little bit, meat in the bottom with water and steaming vegetables. So there's a lot of different meals you can come up with in a rice cooker if you're somewhere without a stove or in a dorm setting. Highly recommend it.
Funny thing about that is years ago I had a rice cooker and I haven't used this. I don't know what to do with it, and I gave it to Danielle, and Danielle has made really good use of it. So I'm pretty happy about that and pretty amazed at all the stuff she's managed to cook. Taryn, you got a question in the chat, and it said, "Have you been kicked off the van yet at LCB?"
No, I have not, but I will explain that.
I think you probably need to.
Yeah, I was going to say, I'm going to explain that. The answer is no. But so basically, when you first get to LCB, the center and the apartment complex aren't in the same place. So newer students who don't have as much mobility skills go on like a van or a bus, depending on who's driving, to the center. But once you have enough skill and you know the route, you can walk to and from the apartments. I have yet to get to that point, but I'm sure I'll get there eventually.
Absolutely, you'll get. I have complete confidence that you will get kicked off the van, but you might not want to do it in winter when it's cold.
That's what I'm afraid of.
Yeah, exactly. In January, of course, you're in Louisiana, so it's not as cold there as it is in Kentucky. So that is helpful.
True. Very true.
That's all of the questions that I have for the panel. Are there any other questions in the chat, or Danielle, Taryn, do y'all have anything else that you would like to add that I haven't brought up, from our discussion the other day?
I have a question for Taryn.
Yes.
You were explaining to me, it's something you kind of touched on, but it was just, you were explaining to me how when you had a blind travel instructor, that when you had sighted travel instructors, they were always telling you to feel what was under your cane, and the difference between what that instructor said to you and what had been previously said, which I thought was fascinating.
So my previous mobility instructors wouldn't really delve too deep into like textures and stuff. I mean, they would touch on it, but not very much. And Marco is really was really into like me feeling different textures under my feet and my cane and listening and just taking on in every single bit of information that I possibly could. And I mean, in retrospect, like that makes a lot of sense, right? But I guess I just never thought of it like that. Because like, I don't know, it just didn't occur to me to think in that way of I need to take in every single bit of information that I possibly can in order to make a safe call. And it's especially
sorry. Go ahead.
And it's especially very important because I mean some street curbs, let's face it, they're not very steep, they're not very easy to spot sometimes. I'm sure you guys know. So it's definitely very important to pick up on that kind of stuff.
Danielle, there was a question that came through in the chat, and I'm not sure who it was from, just wanting to know other places that you navigated in New York.
Sure. Let's see. I did navigate New York City. I did take the train from Long Island, New York into Penn Station, Manhattan area. Trying to think where. And then I took the subway into White Plains. So that's probably the two main places I went off to by myself.
Well, I guess if there aren't any other questions, I want to thank Taryn and Danielle and thank Jane, and I will turn it back over to Jane.
Thank you guys so much. I'm sure that we will get other questions later and we will pass those along. And we appreciate you being here. And guess what? You guys have finally made it to a door prize. I know you've been holding your breath this whole time, wondering if we were ever actually going to do one. We in fact are. Our door prize chair, well, co-chairs maybe, Lonnie and Ashley Swafford, are going to bring us our door prizes along with a little instructions from what I understand. So I think, there you go, it's Lonnie's phone, I think, that they're on. And hopefully he's there. I hope so. I don't know. Maybe I should have.
Oh, I'm here.
Oh, hey, there you are.
Yep, just had to get unmuted there. Welcome, everyone. Thank you guys so much for being here. So just a couple of quick housekeeping items for the door prize drawings for today. So we will space these throughout the convention. We'll have no carryover. There will be a 5-minute period to respond to an email, or to send an email, excuse me. And we will provide a code word. We're going to ask that the door prize be sent to, the email be sent to NFB, well, let me start over. Door prizes at, let me start over again. I'm having some computer issues. Door prizes, NFBK at gmail.com. So if you use that email that you used for registration, that's fine. If you want us to send the Amazon e-gift card to a different email address, you would want to indicate that in your message. You can expect to receive the door prize no later than 30 days from the drawing. So this first one is for a $50 Amazon e-gift card, and we are going to provide the code word of dive, D-I-V-E, as in skydive. So we will start the clock. Again, that email address is doorprizesnfbk at gmail.com. And the clock will start now. Thank you.
You didn't give a name. Lonnie.
I'm sorry, I didn't hear you, Jane.
You did not give a name.
Oh, I
It would be hard
apologize.
for the clock to start. There is no winner.
You're absolutely correct.
We're all winners. Yay!
Yay! I apologize, guys. Ashley, we've had a small situation this morning. the winner for this first door prize is Samuel Green. So Samuel Green, if you're listening.
All right. I think that's
All right.
actually one of the NFB kids. I think that is one of Jenny Green's kids, probably. I don't know.
Yes.
All right. You also did.
All right.
That's awesome. Yay. See, it is a kids convention. Win prizes, get to talk. It's awesome. All right. Our next presenter is also part of our last presentation, but in a different capacity. When the pandemic happened, it changed a lot of things for a lot of us, and some more than others. And Danielle had been sharing her experiences with a lot of us via some of our Zoom calls, which is how this kind of came into being. So Danielle, as you know, is deafblind, and I really would like her to present about how that was impacted in this post-COVID world and through the pandemic itself, because I know that it caused issues with, being able to access interpreters, et cetera, that are issues that even as blind people ourselves, we don't necessarily recognize. So it's definitely worth noting. Danielle, are you on here?
Yes, I am. Just got back, so we're good. Perfect
Yay!
timing.
All right.
So you guys are probably gonna get sick of hearing my voice. Sorry. So back in 2020, when the world shut down, we were all sent home from our colleges. I was about to start my 8-week ASL discourse and depiction. I had to think about what it was called. I was about to start that, my 3rd level of that. And suddenly I didn't have access to the course. And at that time, they had, I guess, tried to find an interpreter in my local area, but since the world basically shut down, it didn't happen. So I had to withdraw and retake it at a later time, which was fine. It's that I was scared it would throw me completely off my course schedules and all that, but it didn't. And so spent that first semester at home trying to do it online, and it was okay. It was not great, but then the fall rolled around and I was back in like ASL 301, I believe, which is like the 5th level, and I had to be on campus even though all my classes were being held virtually. I still had to be on campus because that's where interpreters were. So while other people could stay home and do all their courses via Zoom, here I was having to, be 2 hours away from home on campus in the middle of a pandemic using tactile interpreters. And, there was conversations about, can we do this safely? Because it is touch. We did try to use gloves. That did not work. I'm sorry, but the whole I am very blind with gloves on is a real thing. And so we ditched the gloves pretty quickly and just did a lot of hand sanitizing, masks, and I worked with 2 interpreters for all of my courses, and it kept the same 2 interpreters. Those 2 interpreters were also not interpreting in person very much the first semester, except with me. They were interpreting everything virtually otherwise. So there was that to consider, lower risk of one of us 3 getting exposed to COVID-19. And we were very careful about that aspect. And I do know, I think someone higher up from the university had kind of questioned whether the safety of it and the necessity of it, and our department chair kind of stepped in and said, look, this is the only way she can access this, and we're doing the best we can. That was the fall 2020, and I guess went on into spring 2021 as well. where we did have lab in person. We used a lot of hand sanitizer. Other people did slowly start signing, taking turns, and we did do that very gradually. And now we are fully back in person and with interpreters in person, signing with multiple people. So it has gotten a lot better with the vaccine coming out and a lot safer to do that. But during that time, it was very isolating in a lot of ways too, because I only used those two main interpreters. And that really impacted my signing skills in that when I went back to in person, it was kind of like, what are you saying to me? I don't know what, now I have to get used to different people's signing styles again. What are you saying? So I spent the first few weeks kind of just like, okay, I kind of know what you said, but not really. So I guess I'll pause here and see if there's any specific questions that people have. Are we there? Uh-oh.
We hear you.
Sorry, my audio is muted. Yeah, we hear you, Danielle. I don't hear anything in the chat. And at this time.
Oh, I'm sorry. I just now my FM streamer disconnected. Okay, I can hear you now.
Okay.
I was
yeah,
like, everything die?
No. Okay. I don't hear anything coming through the chat. Ben and Phil can correct me. Usually it comes through my voiceover and I don't hear anything. So
you're correct, Jane. There's no questions at this
time.
Thank
you.
Okay. If there's none yet, then I would go ahead and talk a little bit how it was like trying to navigate a college campus in the middle of all this. That got interesting as well. As a deafblind person, I often use communication cards and need assistance getting across the street. And that often means, relying on the general public and strangers to guide me across the street. And it got a little bit strange in the beginning of the pandemic because, people wanted to social distance, but I can't hear them when they're over 6 feet away from me. Nor am I gonna say, and it's not really safe to have someone just tell you when they cross the street unless you know that person. Okay, it is just, I tried that one time, and the moment they said, yeah, you can cross, I literally heard a car coming in front of my face. And so that ended that idea real fast. So now I'm stuck having to insist that either you guide me, or if you're not comfortable with it, then find somebody, because unfortunately that's just, you got to take your own physical safety in consideration too. And I had some interesting encounters of where they would stand, 6 feet away from me, and then they would try to talk to me, and then I would be like, I cannot hear you. You do have to guide me. Like, I will pull my mask up and everything. Like, you do have to guide me across the street. People did it. I did get some people who I think were a little bit freaked out by it. I did have people who totally walked away, which is fine. But it was very challenging to communicate with people that I get that we're in a pandemic, but I need help across the street. And no, standing 6 feet isn't gonna work. So.
Danielle?
Yes.
I have a question. So I know that you use a dog guide. Can you talk a little bit about that in relationship to, some of the travel things that you're discussing?
Sure.
Because I know you had to go get another one very recently.
I I'm very glad I did it for the
Yes.
things were opening up, not when the world shut down. Like some of my friends have got their guide dogs right before the world shut down, and it's very much impacted guide dog users in terms of getting your dog out and working and keeping their skills up. Unfortunately, right now I have a different situation of I have a broke foot and been in a wheelchair. So my poor dog hasn't actually worked more in 2 months. We'll see how that goes. But as far as like the pandemic, it was confusing. You know, the dogs don't understand social distance. They're taught to guide, they're taught to find the quickest way through. And that might mean squeezing through in and out of paths. They just, you know, you can't, that's a lot to ask on a dog. And also, I did find having a dog really, really helpful because a lot of times you never knew when entrances were closed or whichever entrances were open, or if there was there's little divider thingies that you normally see in airports or suddenly in Starbucks, and you have no idea how you're going to navigate around this. So it was really helpful as a guide dog user because the dogs can see some of that and kind of help you navigate around craziness that occurred in the middle of the pandemic.
Awesome. Do we have any other questions? Feel free to raise your hand or to type in the chat if you're not comfortable with that. And we will get the tech team to connect you to Danielle so you can ask a question.
Danielle, it's Laura. I have a question.
Sure.
Do you think that now, I mean, obviously with your foot, you're not out more, but before you broke your foot, that's a whole other story for everybody.
Yeah. We'll skip that.
Do you think that like from early on in the pandemic till more recently, things have gotten better as far as people being willing to step out of their comfort zone and help you? Has that kind of changed, or are people still kind of standoffish and fearful?
I think it has definitely gotten better. I think I can tell when the world kind of opened up, more people were like, oh, it's okay, it's not that big of a deal, and things have gone mostly back to normal. I still get, you know, the occasional strange encounter, but for the most part, it is definitely improved. You know, I still have the issues of communicating between these giant plexiglass things that I'm sorry, but who can hear through those? You know, when the workers have masks on, it's really hard still to like communicate, but it's kind of doable.
All right. Do we have any other questions? All right. All right. Thank you so much, Danielle. Oh yeah, somebody says, Danielle, that they could understand, even though they have good hearing, that hearing that would be difficult with masks on, etc. I totally agree. At work, I'm often asking kids what they said, and not because they're preschoolers and I can't understand them, which is sometimes accurate, but because they're wearing a mask. Anyways, thank you. Phil, do we have our next presenter on here? Do you know?
He's not quite on yet, no, but he said he is coming.
Okay. He's working on it. Okay. All right. So our next presenter, his name is Brad Holland, and he is I believe he's a blind vendor here in Kentucky. Todd can correct me if I'm wrong. I don't think so. So upon being told that he was going to lose all of his vision, he decided to build a house, because that's usually what you do when you find out you're going to lose your vision. Decide to take on a massive project. So we might have to put him in another category. You guys, like the crazy blind athletes, there might have to be another category for people who build their own home when they're told that they are losing their vision. Right now I'm waiting for the tech guys to tell me that he has gotten on. I'm also listening through the earpiece for him to get on. Oh, there we go. Hello, sir. Okay, my dog is now barking. I'm so sorry. Well, whining. All right. We are waiting for Brad to get unmuted and hoping that he can share his story.
Is attempting to reach you on your cellular device. Your son is attempting.
All right. Hello, sir.
Hey guys, how you doing?
Good. How are you?
Hello?
Can you hear us? All right. It looks like we're having to, we've learned a lot about resiliency today. I think if it could technically go wrong, it has. So let's see if we can figure out what's going on there. Let me see.
I can hear you guys, but.
Okay, you can hear us. We can hear you.
Yes.
Okay, awesome.
It's very low, but I can hear you.
Turn up your device.
Oh, yeah. I can't hear nobody now.
There you go. Now you're back.
Okay.
No one's talking. We're waiting for you to talk, sir.
Oh, okay.
It's your turn.
This is kind of new. Well, I'm Brad Holland. And Todd was wanting me guys to speak to you guys about an experience that I had. Far as building my house as a visually impaired person. It was something like I was explaining to him, something that I went through that I basically kind of had to do myself, because it was a challenge far as trying to prove something to myself, because I come from a background of construction. I was an industrial plumber for the best part of my years, and then after that I kind of felt worthless, like I didn't have a purpose. I even had a problem for a while there with anyone driving me around. It was just something that was just foreign to me, because I considered myself being somewhat of a man's man. And so after I did that, I just went through life just really just trying to sort through my life, and being it's really hard being a sighted person and then going to a non-sighted world. It was just a big drastic change, and this happened when I was 27. So I consider it being a real highlight part of my life when it happened. And so I just was just mulling around, really, far as crazy stuff. It's just so many things that you think about when you're when you go through it. I was even who's gonna dress me? Are they gonna dress me in pink and green or things of that? And then I just came to the realization that I could either stay in the same place that I was in that dark place and not move on and move ahead, or I can try to just do something and try to get back to some sort of normalcy with my life. And so I just decided to take on big projects. I started out breeding dogs, and that was a big challenge. And after I felt like I had conquered that little realm of life, then I moved on to something bigger. That's when I was with. I had a little bitty house that I had already lived in, and I decided I wanted to remodel that little first on first. And then after I got that remodel, which that took me, that wasn't a very long process, but then I was like, hey, why not, try to build a house? So here's the deal. I went out and didn't know anything about building a house at all. I kind of had some prior knowledge of construction with the job that I had by going ahead and knowing how to read blueprints and drafting and stuff like that. So I just applied some of those sciences that I had already experienced before. And I drew my plans out to my house, got those all pretty much inspected and cleared. And then after that, I just kind of started going and digging away at it. Now, most of the stuff that I could not do myself, I hired a framing crew to basically come in and build the frame of my house. And I hired a person to come in and do my concrete work. But when it came to the electrical, the plumbing, the HVAC, the roofing, setting windows and doors, cabinets, sheetrock, insulation, and all those things, I pretty much took those tasks on pretty much by myself. And I had somebody usually helping me. Each person, some of those trades that I named, I had someone to come in and kind of help me kind of do some things, Now, me and my cousin, it's a funny story. When I was building my house, it was in the middle of January in 2007. Well, during that time, if you can go back and look at the almanac during that time, we had about 8 inches of snow. So me and my cousin got on top of this roof of this house. I ended up tying then had a harness tied on the other part of my back, and I was up on this roof sweeping snow off and shingling a roof. So that tells you the kind of determination that that I wanted to get this thing done. It took me about a year to do it. Just every day. I remember my mom, she had a fit at the time when I was doing all of this. She was like, you don't know nothing about building a house, and you're climbing on top of roofs and all. She's like, you're going to hurt yourself. But it's just something that I had to do internally to prove to myself that I was just as able-bodied as I was when I had my vision. And when I got, pretty much to a certain part, it was a lot of blood, sweat, and tears, a lot of hitting your hand with the hammer, and cuts, bangs, and bruises, and tripping over stuff and all of that. And, it was nights that I got a portable heater that I slept on the floor of the house. I just wanted to be immersed in what I was doing. And I felt like I had something to prove. And so when I did get it, when I was going through the loan process of getting the house built, my banker basically said, there's no way that you can build this house for the monies that you're going to build it for, and I told him, I said, well, yeah, I can, So I basically built a 3,500 square foot house for about $140,000 is what I did. That was all in. And I mean, he was amazed with it. You know, there was no lights missing or didn't have running water. It was up and working. You know, I put some of the finer finishes in the house because, you know, I didn't know. I built it for my forever home because, you know, handicap accessible, you know, shower and extra wide hallways and things of that nature, just to make it easy for me to maneuver around, you know. And it just came together, you know, so flawlessly because I was just bound and determined to get that done, you know. And you know, I want to tell everybody, and I think what Todd wanted me to come on and just speak to you guys about this was just, you know, nothing is impossible if given the right opportunity and given the right circumstances. You can do anything. And I mean, I never thought that I'd be, you know, visually impaired, you know, trying to build a house on my own, you know. And when I say a lot of it was on my own, you know, except for the heavy lifting stuff like the framework and the concrete work, the things that's non-forgiving, that you have to do it right the first time. You can't have any uh-ohs. Those things, yeah, I had to sub out, you know, which most people do that build their own house. But other than that, it was me. It was all me day in, day out for, like I said, about almost a year, just toiling away at it and working on it, you know. So, and it's just, you know, and far as other things that I want to do, you know, it's like the vending program. All of that kind of goes hand in hand, and it kind of just sets you up to do other things. You know, when you accomplish one goal, you know, I always say, you know, I never just want to stay level. I always consider myself not just an average kind of person. I consider myself above average, and I try to do above average things, you know, in everything that I do. And I always try to push the envelope to what I try to do. You know, sometimes I think I do too much, but you know what? You never know unless you try. So, I mean, that's kind of basically, you know, in a nutshell, you know, what I've experienced and some of the things that that I've done, you know, as far as trying to build this house. And now I'm in the process, since the market is up and it's hot, I'm getting some little things together now to kind of just maintenance stuff, little bitty painting stuff that and I'm going to end up selling the house, and then I'm going to build another one. Got the building fever. Once you get bit by that building bug, you know, it kind of never goes away. So that's my next big goal that I'm up against now. So with the way the market is, I should come out looking pretty good. And then, you know, build the next one that I build. Hopefully it'll be cashed out, and I'll be just drinking Mai Tai sitting on a beach somewhere, I hope.
That's awesome. I love that. Not only did you have a plan to build the house, but now you got another plan. It's great. I think there was a question in the chat a while back.
Yeah.
Ben, can you read that?
Yeah. So Reese asked, what accessible tools did you use, and what would you do differently if done again?
The things that I would do differently would probably just be, you know, I had a trusting people. Some of the contractors that I had used, like the concrete guy, you know, I've got a ton of these construction horror stories for you guys, but you know, I had a guy that did my concrete, and you know, being the nice guy that I try to be and respectful, you know, he needed to do a draw. And what that is, you know, a certain stage of work is done, and then you give them a certain amount of money. Well, this gentleman he came to me and said, hey, he needed X, Y, and Z because he couldn't afford to start the job. So basically I gave him about $30,000. And he ended up running away with the bulk of the money. And then I ended up, hello?
You're still on.
Okay, I'm sorry. And so he ended up running away with the bulk of the money. And, I kind of had to find him and seek him out. And, so I finally got that done. But I would definitely have ironclad contracts. Being the town that I live in, a lot of stuff was done on a handshake. And I know from now on, I will never do that again. I'll have that done. I'll have it in paperwork. I will never just do a handshake thing again. The other thing that I would do is I would probably just plan some more stuff out. You always get better as time goes on. Any home builder will tell you, their first house, they made some mistakes on it. So I learned so much on this first one that I'll apply to the second one that that'll make things easier. And then, technology has changed so much. I would definitely have a smart home. Being visually impaired, I would definitely put things like that into place to make my life a little bit more easier. And just, I just try, and by me building it while I was visually impaired, I did do some things right. But other than that, that's really about it. That's really about it. That's all I would change. And far as any accessibility stuff that I use, I really didn't use any. I didn't have any at the time. I wasn't part of any program or had any accessible stuff that I could use. I was just basically using my computer. It was oh God, what was it? Windows. I can't even remember what Windows it was back then. And I just magnified everything up and blew it up, and I took it to the Office Max, and I got it blowed up to where I could use it. And I had an old magnifying glass. So, I didn't have any of the tools that we have out now.
Wow, that makes it even more impressive, I have to say. We think about people struggle even now to do things like that with all the tools. So the fact that you did it not having any of those accessible equipment is awesome.
Yeah. Yeah.
Very cool.
Yeah. And go ahead.
You're fine.
Yeah. And it was something every day that I had to come up against, and like I said, it was nights that I just, I slept on the floor of the house. I had a little bitty heater, electric heater with a generator, and I just roughed it. And I'm not gonna say that it was all easy and great, because it was a lot of days that I was crying like a baby, but that comes with it. And I'm pretty sure some of us that was sighted, probably came to a point in our life to where we were still struggling, with, trying to do that transfer into the unsighted world, and we tend to forget. I tend, even it's been.
Nope, I think we lost him. All right. Well, if Brad comes back, we'll put him back on, but I think we may have actually just lost. Oh, there he is.
Yeah, that doesn't stop me from doing stuff, So I mean, it's just always a constant hurdle, I mean, you hear people say, oh gosh, I wish I had my legs. If I just had my legs, then you hear people say, well, I wish I could smell, or I wish I could hear, or but you never, you just got to work with what you got, in most cases.
Well, thank you very much. I definitely think you are an excellent story for resilience, and we appreciate you being here. Thank you very much for taking a part out of your Saturday to be with us. We appreciate it.
Oh, I'm sorry, guys. I was trying to get on earlier, but I was having a little bit of difficulty seeing it.
That's okay. It's been
how
that
visual
day.
impaired people.
It's been that day. We've had several people drop off. We had a speaker who went to unmute, and unmuting kicked her completely out. So, it's okay.
Oh, wow.
It happens.
Yeah. But does
It's
anybody
awesome.
have any other questions or anything?
I do not see anything in the chat. Thank you very much. We very much appreciate it. And if I get questions later, I will shoot them to Todd, and he can send them to you.
Yeah,
and we'll try to get back to folks.
Yeah, and if anybody that is interested in maybe building their home, or trying to have their house remodeled, or anything like that, construction related, have Todd to give him my number, get my number from Todd, and feel free to call me, because right now my parents that live in Indianapolis, they're adding on 500 square foot to their house, and my dad calls me every day. What is this going on? What does this mean? What do I need to tell them to do? And my stepmom gets tickled, because she's like, do you realize what you're doing? You're asking a blind man or visually impaired man over the phone how to build this, and he's telling you how to build it. And he's like, well, I went out there and told him what you said, Bradley. He was like, well, how do you know all this, sir? My son told me. So, I mean, it's good to have somebody on your team. And if anybody needs any help far as trying to maneuver the waters, or trying to get a house built, or anything like that, I'll try to help as much as I can, because, we all can help each other, in some form or fashion.
Well, thank you very much. Speaking of that, your buddy Todd has a birthday today. And here in the state of Kentucky, in our affiliate, we are definitely a family. And I hope I can get some help here from Ben and from Phil to allow you all to unmute. Now you're going to get an invitation. You have to unmute yourself. They cannot unmute you. Right now, you guys have been so. All right, Reese, I will pass that on to you outside of the chat. So if everybody wants to unmute, I think we should sing happy birthday to our friend Todd, because he's spending his birthday with us. And though our original convention date was supposed to be my birthday and Emma's birthday, we're going to celebrate anyway. All right, who wants to start this? I'm terrible at starting this.
Yeah, but
happy
birthday to you. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday, dear Todd. Happy birthday to you.
And many more on Channel 4. Oh my Lord. Oh my Lord. Happy birthday, Todd. I didn't even try. Happy birthday, Todd.
Thank you all.
Happy birthday, Todd.
Happy birthday.
Sounds like we are drinking, doesn't it?
Yeah.
I just thought, we should have a real convention moment here. So, everybody, enjoy your lunch hour. We will be back at 1 p.m. for more fun with your tech team. and others. So go get something to eat and meet us back here at 1. Thank you all.
Into a president. Registered us this morning.